Hey guys, Mitch AK here. I'm sure you guys have already noticed and heard, but Orlando is finally coming to global after months of waiting. Um, Basically, the king of damage is going to be here, and he's going to be on top pretty much for months. And even when he does fall off a little bit, like let's say Onion Knight comes out, Orlando is still going to be right up there. Onion Knight in Japan had a rating of 99 when he first came out. Orlando was 98. And Orlando actually got enhancements recently, and he's back up to 99. So he's just pretty much always on top. So once you get him, you're set damage-wise for a very long time, pretty much indefinitely. I'm so excited, but I'm also nervous that I'm not going to get him. But anyway, enough about that. Let's go ahead and take a look at the banner real quick. So obviously the main prize is Orlando, just OP character. He's been always OP, even in the Final Fantasy Tactics game. He's meant to be that way. Uh, One thing that was funny was that in another game, Record Keeper, anytime you get a new character, they start out at level 1, obviously, and then you build them up. But with Orlando, it's kind of like, no, he's never allowed to be weak, so he actually comes to you right at level 50. And then he obviously can go up to like level 80, level 100, depending on how you can break those limits. But he's never meant to be weak. He's meant to be OP, and he really is in this game. So his Just Master reward is a very unique accessory that grants you 3 separate abilities. Now, you probably won't be using these abilities too often on Orlando himself, but if you were to, get this Trust Master reward and put it on some other character that's lacking in some ability department, that could make another character good. It's a really fun accessory, kind of similar to Ring of the Lucii for Noctis, which grants Alterna and stuff like that, but it's really not something you need to rush for. So, and that's obviously not why you're going for this character. You're going for the character for the character. So we'll get into more of the details in a bit. So the next character is a base 4-star going to 6-star, Soleil. I guess it's a FFBE character, and she's a dancer. Her Trust Master reward is actually pretty bad for a 4-star character. MP 20%, defense 10, Sir 10, and then it gives you like a 5% chance of evading physical attacks, so this is really not a big deal at all. Okay, sorry about that. But yeah, we'll get into more of the details obviously again, but spoiler alert, not a good character. Ovelia, again, not a good character, only goes to 5 stars. She's a pretty decent 5-star healer, but now that we have a free Y'shtola, who is a 6-star healer, has everything Ovelia has innate dual cast and everything, there's really nobody who should be using this character unless they're coming into the game after this event, the raid event. One thing I do like about her though is I actually like her Trust Master reward a lot for healers. It has 49 spirit, which isn't the absolute best, but the MP plus 15% is actually really good. I would actually put this above Lena's Magi Staff, which has plus 70 spirit, but it doesn't give you the MP. And I'd rather lose 21 spirit and gain, the MP, because when you're dual casting Kiraja or Full Life or casting Embolden or things like that, you want more MP. So this is actually a really good staff for healers. I would go for this. Well, you're probably going to get a bunch of this character when you're going for Orlando anyway. But if you get this Trust Master reward, I would say it's actually really good. Not that it makes a huge difference on healers, honestly, but it is good. And then last, we have Lawrence, who, in my opinion, is the consolation prize for this banner. He only goes to 5 stars, which makes it basically like he's not really usable for most situations. But his Trust Master reward is what I'm really going for. It's basically going to be a nice upgrade for anybody who's still using Black Belt Gi. And I'm using that on a couple of characters. Even my second Noctis is still using Black Belt Gi, which has like 24 defense, 8 attack. This is going to be finally like an upgrade that we've been waiting for. So I'm sure I'm going to get at least 5 of this guy. And then I'm going to farm up his Trust Master reward for my second Noctis. So this is, to me, the consolation prize. This is the second best unit that I would want off this banner. But as you can see, overall, the banner is pretty weak. It's very weak if you take out Orlando. So we'll get right into the details of the characters now. So, like I said, Soleil is a bad character, even though she's 4 stars and goes to 6 stars. She's a dancer, but like I'm looking at her abilities and I don't really see anything that I really need. Okay, her stats are just like average, kind of what you would expect, I guess. Her spirit's pretty high, so I guess that would, make her a little bit more resistant to magical attacks. But when you look at the list of abilities, you just don't see anything that's gonna really leap out the page. I mean, obviously there's gonna be situational um, uses for status ailments, like bosses are certain have certain weaknesses, and actually that's pretty rare these days. Bosses rarely have status weaknesses unless you're playing like a lower difficulty, and the 30% is very unreliable. So again, not a good character. This only boosts like one stat at a time. Why would you do that when you can, there's plenty of characters out there who can boost two things at a time, like attack and magic or attack and defense, magic and spirit. It's just, this is a really bad buff. Her dance, it's just called dance, gives you a 25% chance to use all these things. Again, I'm not a big fan of like the randomness. Tempting Tango is just up here. It's just another confuse to all enemies, 30%. Jitterbug Duet is like a physical version of Drain. This drains a little bit of HP, but because she's not going to have high attack anyway, you're not going to like, it's not going to be like an awesome ability for you. Mystery Waltz is a physical version of Osmos. Does a little bit more magic damage, like 0.35 versus 0.3, but again, nothing to write home about. She might need more MP, so you'll probably hope for this, but because it's random, it's like pretty stupid. You're not going to be able to rely on that at all. And then 25% chance to use Sword Dance. This is actually probably an infamous ability that was on Pinello first. It was the highest multiplier attack in the game at the time. It was a 4x multiplier, but it was pointless because it was on Pinello, and now it's on Soleil, who, neither of these characters are really going to have good attack for you. Sleep 30%, increase the resistance to these status ailments, and then she has these one stat dances here for one turn to all allies. Now, this is like the only time there's going to be situational uses, I think. Obviously, other than the status ailments. But, let's say you're one of those whales who can do one-turn kills on Ifrit or other bosses. Or you do, like, crazy chaining with Chizuru and Olive, and you just really want, like, as a maximum buff. So, you might want to use a 60% increase to attack for one turn to all allies. That can make sense for you. But for most people, this is just way too short a duration, and yeah, it's useful, but it's not worth like a whole character slot just to have that. And then she inflicts charm with her limit burst, which I'm assuming is like confusion, I guess. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I actually don't even care to look it up because I'm not going to use this character, and if I get her, I'm going to throw her in the trash bin. Even her Trustmaster reward is not that good. So let's get to Ovilia. Okay, so this is a 5-star healer. Again, 5-star healer, you should be using Y'shtola, but if for some reason this is all you can use, she does have a pretty decent skill set. She has Raise, Asuna, Kiraja, which is like the 3 major things that you need. Her bravery skill is completely useless. Like, this is like really bad. So is Faith. Why would you want to buff one ally by 20% for 3 turns? I mean, this is just kind of like paying homage to the original Source game, I guess, but there's no reason to actually use this. And then her Limit Burst is like an AoE heal and a defensive buff at the same time. The heal is actually pretty weak, but oh, I'm sorry, it's a regen. So it's not that bad, actually. It gives you regen to your whole party and gives you some defensive buffs, but yeah, it's a pretty decent limit burst. Not that you'd want to use her anyway, but that's Ovilia. Lawrence, again, max 5-star character, not a whole lot to talk about. I mean, pretty average stats. His attack's actually kind of low for this stage of the game. He's able to equip daggers, swords, and katana, so if you were like trying to have fun with this character, you could beef him up really well with Leon's TMR, Chizuru's TMR, get those 50% boosts, and well, no, he couldn't get the 50% boost for the sword one because he can't equip heavy armor. But anyway, not a whole lot to talk about here either. He has some breaks that are just renamed something else. Swallowtail is actually just a blade blitz, but I haven't seen this since Fencer, which is kind of a cool throwback. Nothing else to talk about, but there is one, and Barrage, of course. This skill is getting really long, really old and outdated by now. And then his Limit Burst is a pretty decent attack, I guess, and then reduces defensive spirit, but pretty low percentage, and you probably have better debuffs on your team anyway. The one skill that he has that I think could be actually very useful if you're trying to cheese or do some kind of like fun strat is Mirage Shot. Now, if you're against the boss that only does physical damage, you could just, like, I can imagine a team of Lawrences just spamming Mirage Shot and basically like dodging, attacks the next turn. But of course, that's assuming that the boss only does one attack. Nowadays, you have these bosses that do a lot of like multi-attacks. But you can see some funny, cheesy situations using that. But all in all, he's a max 5-star character. You're not going to use him. Again, what you're pulling him for is the monster breastplate, which somehow crashed, but I already showed you guys that anyway. So Orlandeau, the guy we've been waiting for months, for months, and he's the best attacker in the game. He's gonna stay that way for a while, and yeah, I mean, there's just so much awesome about this character. I mean, even the way he looks and just the lore around him, he's meant to be awesome. He's called the Thunder God. His stats are really good, really high attack, good HP. He's only able to equip swords, great swords, and katanas. But that's good enough for him. You can equip Excalibur, which most people are going to want to do. And then he has a good armor selection. You'd want to put heavy armor probably. Now he has some of these, I mean, all these abilities can find their own uses, but yeah, you're not going to be using them a whole lot, to be honest, but we'll just go through it anyway. So he has a chance to stop here. He has HP drain here if he ever needs to like heal himself for whatever reason. And then crush weapon, it's a pretty nice debuff. Reducing attack and magic in one blow is actually really good while you're doing the damage. So this is a pretty good ability. His limit break gauge fills up really quickly, so that's awesome. North Swain's strike, 1.6 with 40% defense ignore is actually decent, but it's not really that good, to be honest. The only time that you'd really want to use that is if you're trying to save on MP. It's a 2.66, so pretty decent. And then if this is right, 3 MP, this is like an awesome version of Raging Fist, basically, which also is a very low MP cost ability, but nowhere near this good. So if you're running out of MP, then this is a way for him to keep dishing out the damage. Obviously, he has attack passives here, 30%, and then he's able to, let's see here, yeah, get further 40% attack when equipped with a great sword. So, I mean, everybody's going to want to put basically an Excalibur on him because not only does it match with his holy element, but it also will give him the extra passive. So Excalibur is pretty much a must. Although if you don't farm TMRs and you don't have it, there is a holy sword that's going to be in the event, which has like 79 attack, pretty decent as well. So even free-to-play players can get in on the fun. Cleansing Strike, I believe Agrius had this as well. Decent multiplier, I guess, but if you want to confuse the enemy, that's kind of one way to go. Lightning Stab, again, if you want to do silence. I mean, I'm not into these 30% attacks, as you can tell. He recovers MP passively, and now the bread and butter ability that you're going to be using like 95% of the time is Divine Ruination. It has a 2x multiplier with 50% defense ignore, so this works out to an effective multiplier of 4x, which on its own is already really good, a 4x multiplier attack. But on top of that, it also decreases light resistance by 50%, so you're going to be doing extra damage assuming that you're using like an Excalibur or that holy element sword that I mentioned from the event. So you're gonna be doing extra damage after the first attack. So even if you have dual wield, the first attack's going to do a certain amount of damage, and then the second attack's going to do more damage, and any follow-up attacks for the next 3 turns are going to do more damage. Again, that's not even where it ends. On top of that, this skill is a really good chaining ability. It does a lot of hits, and it looks really cool. The most similar skill would be what's his name? Would it be Medius? Does he have that one shooting ability that kind of looks like that? But it looks really cool. It chains. It does a lot of hits. So on top of all these other effects and things, if you are able to, have a Orlandeau friend and you have an Orlandeau in your party and you do both Divine Ruination for both of them, they're gonna be chaining like crazy together with a ton of hits. So this is basically going to be the meta going forward. There's going to be there are still chain enders, like who do like one big hit, like Cloud or Randy later and things like that. But for the most part, there's going to be a ton of these chaining type of abilities coming in the future. And this is basically like the one that set the standard. So I can't wait to use that, assuming I even get him. But yeah, that's just his bread and butter ability. You're going to use that all the time. Then his limit burst is really, really not that impressive unless you're in like a really AoE heavy type of situation, like you're fighting 5 different enemies at once. You're not really going to want to use this. You're going to want to stick to Divine Ruination. So anyway, I can't believe he's finally coming. I can't believe he's here on Friday, but he is an awesome character. If you get him, then you can feel really good that you have the best attacker in the game indefinitely, pretty much. If you aren't able to get him, I'll admit that, if I don't get him, I'm going to be pretty sad. But it's not the end of the world either, because in a couple months or a few months, you're going to, Agrius is going to get her 6-star form, and she's going to also get enhancements, and she's going to be almost as good as Orlandeau. She's going to have a very Divine Ruination type of skill. She's going to have, not as good stats or anything like that, but, her rating in Japan right now is 97, so she's like a baby Orlandeau if you aren't able to get him. But, hopefully, obviously we want to get him anyway, so that's my banner review. Orlandeau's the main prize that everybody's going to go for. You're going to have a whole lot of Orlandeau friends in the next week. And, again, to me, the consolation prize is Lawrence. If you get a bunch of Ovelias, her staff would be pretty nice as well. And Soleil is just trash, in my opinion. I'm sure there's people that are going to use her, but I'm not going to use her. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll come out with another video in just a little bit talking about the event. But the banner was really the big news. Can't wait.